So why not? Why wouldn't I go and live in a brand new property with more amenities and maybe a better location? And that's what puts the pressure on the B and the C product is.
The further up in my career I go, the less buying power I think I have.
You need to improve on what's existing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just offering the same product with just a shiny name or a shiny package, that's not going to cut it for the industry.
Correct.
Or for a company like Asset Living.
I think overall the one thing that we have to remember as an industry is that we are in the leasing business. That is number one. That is our goal. We provide housing for the masses.
And you know, tech fatigue is a thing. It's a problem. So we need solutions to limit the number of logins, for example, that the on-site team has to jump into on a daily basis. How many passwords can you remember every single day?
As a general rule, disruption is not going to come from within in any industry, including ours, right? So it has to be a force, an exterior force.
Yes.
And the best example that I think we all have is. So great to have you both here today. I love to start with you, Henry, and I want to get your take on like current market conditions. What are the main things, the main trends that you're seeing in the markets that you're over? And I think most importantly is you start with the markets that you're overseeing, because we can't really make general statements. I believe, they're not as valuable if you're not really defining like the area that you're talking about, but the areas that you're overseeing, understanding that you oversee about 26,000 units.
26,000 units in about 5 different states currently. So the market conditions, I would say, are dependent on the competition. If they're offering concessions, you have to offer concessions. So that translates to softer rents for us right now. And we're having to compete. We're having to offer loss leaders in order to stay competitive. We're having to give more concessions. So it's a tough environment right now, I would say. Probably it has been since the second quarter of last year. Mm-hmm. And we probably going to see more of that for the rest of this year and into next year as well.
I want to unpack a little bit. You say someone offers concession, pretty much everybody else is forced to align from a price perspective.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you find that you have like a competitive advantage to say you or your portfolio is to be the first ones to make the move versus being somehow at the mercy when it comes to not necessarily pricing, but maybe something else when it comes to like somebody making a move, everybody else has to line up? Do you have something in your back pocket that, it'll be your first move that others will be forced to kind of follow in order to stay competitive with you?
Well, at Asset, we have great analysts and we have some powerful tools. Our in-house BI is very helpful. So we have the luxury of analyzing the entire country, all 45 plus states that we work in. So we're able to see trends. We're able to spot what a market is doing as far as, the rents have been steadily declining. So let's take a look at that. They're softening in this city. So we're able to get ahead of it a little bit and make adjustments on the fly, if you will.
Excellent. What are the toughest markets for you?
Currently, Alabama, I would say, is a tough one. The economy's not great. The people hit hardest right now are the people with the lowest incomes. So that's your BC assets. A assets are doing just fine. And people at the top are, the higher earners are able to withstand the storm a little bit better. So when you're talking about who's doing best, that translates to what markets are doing best as well. So I would say your B and C assets, where people's pocketbooks are a little bit tighter and they can't really withstand an increase, or it's tough to just find housing for them. So that translates to states like Alabama. No pun on Alabama or anything, but just states where the incomes correlate with that. And also, just in general, areas in any state that correlate with, those tertiary markets that have maybe a lower income potential in the household income that's a little bit less than the inner cities, if you will.
I think everybody's kind of like seeing the same trends that, lower middle class is the most affected.
Correct.
And then I wanted to ask you from your numbers, from your BI statistics, are you seeing that this top of like higher middle class, the numbers of that population shrinks and they're transitioning down? Or is it more upward? Do you see more from like the lower income brackets like going up? What do you think like as far as like supply of possible applicants for your deals? Do you see like a higher supply, like supply being increasing on like a lower end of the spectrum, and then less candidates for the upper? How do you see that mobility up and down?
Well, the supply always starts from the top down. So you have new construction, which is the A product, and that's going to create pressure on the lower B and C segments, because now, since there's so much saturation in some of these markets and there's so much competition, you're having A product having to offer conditions, you're having A product lower their pricing almost to the point where the B product is. So now you have a lot more product unintentionally in lower segments. It's not just the A luxury product, it's almost because of affordability, because of concessions. You have competition with the B and C product because the A product has to lower their pricing and specials because of the oversaturation of product in the markets.
I can see that affects both of them, right? It affects the A product because they had to drop prices, so there's less money coming in. They're charging less rents. And then for the B and C is that they're pulling like more of their demographics into the A product for a better deal. Who wouldn't want to be like afford like higher end product, for the same money that they could get a B product, right? Am I wrong in saying this?
I'm used to renting a B property that's maybe 10 or 15 years old, but now I see that the A product that's brand new down the street is offering 2 months free, 3 months free, and the rent is not that much more. So why not? Why wouldn't I go and live in a brand new property with more amenities and maybe a better location? And that's what puts the pressure on the B and the C product is that.
Very interesting insights. Brandi, I want to turn to you and kind of ask the same question from a portfolio perspective. You're overseeing about the same size, right? 26,000
Correct.
units-ish. What are the toughest markets for you?
Yeah, so similarly to what Henry said, I would definitely say some of the more tertiary markets where you do have a little bit more of a blue collar type environment. But one market that in particular stands out for me is Jacksonville. Jacksonville has had an oversupply of product for quite some time, and we've had a couple of assets there that have really struggled trying to. They've gone through their lease up period, but now that they're coming around with the expirations, they're back into that high 80s, low 90s threshold. So we're having to kind of go back to the well with more concessions, try to think outside the box to get the prospects in the door and not compete with the brand new product that's coming on the ground.
Yeah, and the pressure there in those markets is that the migration. There are a lot of people that, in the last 3 years moved down to places like Florida, getting away from the cold weather, getting away from the inner cities. But for one reason or another, they are moving back up. They're moving back up to the Carolinas, they're moving to Georgia, or they might be going back to New York or Chicago where they originally came from. Yeah. So that oversupply is also coupled with a migration issue, be it hurricanes, be it insurance cost, or just cost of living overall in Florida. And that's creating additional problems for properties in the Florida region.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, how much longer do you think it'll take Jacksonville to recover?
I think Jacksonville's
to absorb the extra supply.
Yeah, looking ahead and pulling all the data points that we try to stay on top of, I don't think that their long-term supply is that robust. I think you're starting to see that kind of dwindle down a little bit. I think as as long as the businesses still come into the area, Florida is still a great place to operate outside of the insurance costs.
Yeah.
I think we'll start to see that absorption rate recover, and then those properties will rebound. They're in great locations with fantastic school systems. So, I think it's a short-term problem, but unfortunately right now it's something that we're having to deal with on a pretty regular basis.
Are you thinking 6, 12, 18 months when you were saying short term?
I would say maybe, Henry and I probably differ a little bit on this. I think that, as we start looking into Q2 and Q3 of 26, I think we'll start to see a little bit of a rebound.
Does any of you happen to have any assets in the Fort Myers area?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a couple, also in the Port Charlotte, close by, I do have.
I have a couple of questions, and this is like a personal interest of mine as well.
Yeah.
Because I own a couple of duplexes out there, and I've seen stuff that I never even imagined that it's possible.
Yes.
First of all, hurricane hit, so the supply shrunk. It was a great opportunity for a small owner like me. But then everybody saw that opportunity, including institutional investors.
Yes.
And there's thousands of units coming online in market like Fort Myers and the surrounding areas. And also it's the same migration thing that economically people can afford because, they work in services, they work constructions. There's also right now immigration issues too that they're scared that they're gonna, if they don't have all the documentation, they could possibly face deportation. So they're going to other states where they're feeling safer. So it's a combination kind of like the perfect storm against an owner and also an operator too. So what can you tell me about what you're seeing in that particular area and kind of trends? What do you see 6, 12, 18 months from now?
Yeah, I think Fort Myers and some of the smaller cities are a victim of, a couple of years ago where they were underserved. So all of the developers jumped and started building in those markets. And then you have the headwinds of everything you discussed with immigration and just the economy overall. So now you're left with an oversupply, plus the issues, economic or otherwise, and it's created a problem even for these smaller areas because now there's an overdevelopment for their size. If we were talking about overdevelopment for Atlanta, it would be a drop in the bucket. But there's an overdevelopment for the size of those smaller cities. So that's definitely created an issue. And I think that those are the markets that might, like a Jacksonville, Fort Myers, that might not be able to absorb. They would take longer. It would probably be more like 18 to 24 months to see stabilization in those markets.
How many new units are you expecting online in Fort Myers area within the next 12 months?
I don't have the exact number, but I thought last time I looked at just the Florida data, it would be something around 1,400 to 1,800.
Yeah, I think it was just under 2.
Yeah, it's pretty significant for Fort Myers.
For a small city.
Absolutely.
It's a very small city. I want to shift our conversation now towards technology.
Yeah.
It's always a hot topic, and there's so much happening in the world. We're talking kind of off camera before starting the conversation that things are changing at a speed of which our brains can't even comprehend. It's way faster. It's the fastest in revolution that we've seen in human history, way faster than the industrial revolution or anything else, even like the internet when it first came out.
Yeah.
So I want to get your take, and I want to start with you. I want to get your take on how do you vet technology? Also tell me about the process within the company, right? Not just you personally, what you see, because I'm sure that you have we're a company as large as yours, you have individuals that are specialized. Am I wrong in assuming that?
Oh, no, definitely not.
So tell me about the vetting process, for you personally and how your company vets. If I'm a property company and I say I have this great product, how would you look at it and what should I expect from an experience standpoint of being looked at or considered as something that your company might use?
So it's funny, I actually had this conversation a couple days ago and made the comment that the further up in my career I go, the less buying power I think I have.
Yeah.
I definitely, so interested in the technology piece of it and wanting to make sure that our properties and our teams are staying on top of the newest and greatest models of whatever that is, and that, we're being able to give that information over to our clients. Luckily, within Asset Living, we do have a phenomenal chief technical officer, as well as a chief, I guess his title is chief revenue officer. So he is constantly vetting new products, making sure that they fit what our standard model and structure looks like, and then they try to go through a beta testing and then push those out to the individual regions, and then company wide, depending on what product it is. And then obviously our goal is to not pigeonhole ourselves into one specific product for that particular product type. Our goal is to try to have multiple options, so that because it's not a one size fits all. Technology will never be that way. So, I think it's great that we are able to kind of open ourselves up and be very forward thinking and be able to make those decisions really quickly, despite the fact that we are a pretty sizable company. I think one of the things that makes Asset Living so great is that we are extremely technologically forward thinking.
Yeah.
I think I got that out.
Yeah.
So we're constantly looking at ways to make things easier. We have a C-suite that are all from outside of the industry, so I call them the disruptors, and they're always challenging us with ways to try to think outside the box. And why are we doing it this way? Just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's necessarily the right way to do it. It's not the wrong way, but there may be other opportunities. So, I want to say that, we're constantly sending people out to conferences, OpTech obviously being a huge one coming up shortly, and, trying to test new and great products that we can pass along to our on-site teams.
Yeah.
And hopefully not, inundate them and overwhelm them.
Well, and
the end
that's
users.
kind of my point. As a vendor, I think you need to improve on what's existing.
Yeah.
If you're just offering the same product with just a shiny name or a shiny package, that's not going to cut it for the industry.
Correct.
Or for a company like Asset Living. We need a better solution. It can't just be the exact same product that's been offered before by other providers. And tech fatigue is a thing. It's a problem. So we need solutions to limit the number of logins, for example, that the on-site team has to jump into on a daily basis. How many passwords can you remember every single day? Do I need to go here to do this? But so we also need integration. Super important. So some of the companies out there, like a Van or others that are working on suite integration to bring in different technologies into one platform are, probably the future. Or if a company like Entrada or RealPage figures out a way to bring all of the technologies together and offer it through their platform all in one, but nobody has really done that just yet. There's always a third attachment that you have to add in order to get a job done or add a bell and whistle. And I think that's the future, where if we can somehow get an all-in-one platform that offers everything, that will be the best case scenario for us.
You mentioned tech fatigue, so I want to pick up on that a little bit. What I'm getting from conversations with a lot of executives, when I ask the question, how many pieces of the technology you deploy at the site level, the numbers are like unbelievable.
Yes.
The entry-level employee has to be like a leasing agent. Let's just take him, right? I heard like numbers like 63 or 67 pieces of, like I've seen this on a panel at OpTech. This was like a year ago, last year. And it was truthfully shocking, right?
Yeah.
You expect someone that, you pay entry-level salary for the industry to become proficient in like 60-something pieces of software, basically become like a software guru, technology guru. Completely unreasonable. So I'm sure that, there's certain challenges of that nature that you both face, and I'm curious about how you handle it, and how do you see like long term this being addressed?
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, we need someone or a product or a platform that combines everything together, either through their product or gives a hub or some kind of dashboard where all of the integrations, like an SSO situation where you can just log into one location and still have quick access and an interface to everything that we need. Because we can't expect the people on site to be, I'm not an expert on everything that we work with. And there's only so much time in the day. So a lot of these technologies, some properties have 40, 50, 60 technologies in place. They're going to get ignored. And the cream is going to come to the top. The best ones are going to get used, or the easy ones are the ones that are going to get used. And even though a product might offer a great service, but if it's not easy or if it's difficult to access, it's going to get ignored. And now we're spending money that, you're not going to get back. So it's for me, it's that integration and that all in one place that someone needs to figure out for the industry and provide to us.
Yeah. And then I think also it's, between Henry and I, our job and then our team's job to make sure that we are using the best of the best and not having redundancies and, trying to part and parcel certain software platforms because we like this over here for this product and this over here. And then, along comes this third one that hopefully offers everything. So, we're constantly evaluating what our teams are doing at the site level to make sure that we're introducing smart technology and not just throwing a bunch of things up against the wall to see what sticks.
I'm curious, I picked up on something that you said. You brought people from outside the industry
Yes.
to actually to educate you on technology, and you call them disruptors. I'm a strong believer that, as a general rule, disruption is not going to come from within in any industry, including ours, right? So it has to be a force, an exterior force.
Yes.
And the best example that I think we all have is COVID, right?
Yes.
COVID came, and then there was a lot of technology adoption in a short period of time because of a need
Yes.
that was out there. I'm seeing AI being like the next thing, and I think it's going to be faster, more impactful, more powerful, including a lot of individuals not having jobs, right? That's gonna unfortunately happen. So I'm curious, I'm gonna start with you, right? How do you see this disruption in regards to AI? How disruptive you see AI being? How does it impact? And how do you see things being in the future in regards to automation, robotics, and AI combined? How are those gonna affect the way we operate
Right.
real estate?
Yeah, good question. I think overall, the one thing that we have to remember as an industry is that we are in the leasing business. That is number one. That is our goal. We provide housing for the masses. And I think that is something that hopefully AI will never take the place of. We may have helpers, we may have certain things that, will aid that process, but I don't think that we're ever going to remove that actual physical person and that customer service touch from the on-site level. Where I think AI will start to potentially replace people is in, kind of that mid-level range, more of like on the analytics side of things. Maybe, from a revenue management standpoint, just those types of positions. And hopefully that can be deployed into other opportunities that, we've always had, a hole in this particular area. Now we've got a person that can backfill and sit in that role. So, I think overall AI is going to be a great tool for us to use. Hopefully I'm saying that and it doesn't take me over. But I do think that there is still going to be that need for human touch, especially at the on-site level, because, even with this generation coming in, they're very technologically savvy. They know how to operate phones and iPads and devices better than anyone that we know. But if you ever watch them, they want that face-to-face communication. They don't talk on the phone. They video chat or
Text.
Text.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they still want that human interaction, but they want it on their terms. So, I don't think that it's going to go away. I think it's just going to be enhanced.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
My hope is that we don't eliminate human jobs. That would be bad for humanity as a whole and the economy. And then there's going to be people that can't afford the rents that we're asking for. So it's a self-defeating purpose to eliminate jobs. I'm a futurist at heart. I want technology to help me. And I'm always thinking of what's the next best thing to make our jobs easier. So like Brandi said, I want technology to supplement and to enhance what we do. Hopefully not eliminate. There are factors in the industry right now. Clients are asking for centralization, and centralization requires technology in order to implement properly. So you're going to need an AI tool like, a lead nurturing technology or a delinquency technology through AI to make that happen. And you have to eliminate, certain tasks throughout your day to be able to reduce a position or two on site, like a client might want you to, because rents are lower, because there's a lot of headwinds in the market. So you have to find the savings somewhere, and payroll is the largest savings expense
Yes.
that we have on site. So it's naturally, going to be looked at first to see how can we reduce payroll and reduce the size of the team. But my hope is that we don't go too far and that we find a way to enhance what we do and supplement, not eliminate positions.
Yeah, I'm hearing you both saying that AI is a tool, which I share. I share the thought that AI is a tool and it's gonna have to still be guided and operated. It's not just something that you could just cut loose and eliminate the humans.
Right.
Well, there's certain tasks that are repetitive that you could automate and literally do not need a person. AI does way better than a human.
Yes.
Right. But for the most part, right, you're still gonna have that. You need that human touch in the process to oversee, right, to ensure that we're not going sideways. This brings me to a question that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's training, the way let's just say the classic way of doing training, to where your director of training and development builds a curriculum for each individual position a company and says, in the next 6 months, these are the classes that you're gonna take. And typically, and I'm thinking now maintenance, right, mainly because that's my background, it's for technicians and service managers to sit at a computer in front of a screen for 30 minutes or 60 minutes to try to absorb as much information as they can, just enough so they could pass the test, so they could forget it the very next minute.
That's correct.
It's an incredibly inadequate system that doesn't bring any benefits.
No.
And you're paying a lot of money. Every company, especially a company like yours, you're probably paying millions of dollars in that type of technology. But to me, I just said yesterday on a panel, I declared that it's just people just don't realize it yet. That's not the way to go in the future. Now,
Right.
I wanted to get your takes on how do you see training happening in the future with this being so ineffective and not something of the future, right? That we're gonna be doing in the future. How are we training our people?
Yeah. I think that is such a great question that every trainer has asked, and I don't know that anyone has come up with a great solution yet. For me, we actually just had a conference about this, about your different learning styles, whether you're a visual learner, whether you're an auditory learner, or whether you're a interactive learner. And most people think that they're interactive learners, but then when they actually stop and think about it, or when they're learning something originally, their first, I guess, way that they would learn comes out first, and then they gravitate towards the interactive. So for me, I'm a visual learner, and then it's supplemented by the interactive, because I have to see it first, and then I have to do it. So I think until we figure out a way to curb training and reach the individual user, then I think we're always going to kind of fall back into this antiquated way of doing things. With just having videos, putting somebody up in front of a screen, letting them go through their classes, and then sending them on their merry way. I think we've tried many different routes in asset living, and I think we have a fairly decent pathway that we've created internally, where our each role has a roadmap that they have to follow their first 6 weeks on the job. And it's very interactive, and it's they can look at it for week 1, and then it highlights all of the different tasks that they have to do, and it's interactive. They can click in, go straight to the website or platform that they need to operate for that particular role. So I think that has been really effective, but you still have to layer that in with a mentor. We have what's called a TOPS person, which is a traveling operations specialist, that we also add in so that they have additional resources to figure out, because we do have so many platforms and things to navigate. So it's not a kind of a one size fits all training opportunity. It's something that we're constantly trying to evolve and disrupt again so that we can get the best out of the end user.
I agree 100%. There's many different kinds of learning, so you have to train and teach in the way that they can, absorb the information. That's crucial. But I think part of the problem these days, and speaking about maintenance, is that a lot of people have been promoted very quickly. And that goes for office in our industry and for maintenance. Yeah. And you haven't had that tenure, and you haven't had that time to develop your skills and have on-the-job training like in the past. From my generation, we did. You were a leasing agent for a number of years before you moved up to being an assistant manager, and so on and so on. Nowadays, you come into the industry, and within 6 months, you've already moved to the next step, both maintenance and in the office, and you haven't had a chance to learn and develop the skills.
Right.
So that's a bit of a problem, and I think that we have to figure out, and I don't have the answers right here, but we have to figure out how to properly train. That affects our bottom line, because if a tech on site does not know how to fix an air condition, that means that their first go-to is going to be to call a vendor to come out, and that's great for the vendors and everybody that charges to fix an AC.
Yeah.
But we need to figure out a way to fix our own equipment on site and with the resources we have.
And kind of something that you said triggered me, looking at the medical industry, they have to figure out ways to constantly be innovative and create, let's use surgeons as a prime example, to create these almost like a hologram image of the inside of your body, so that they can learn and figure out, exactly what they need to do for particular organs and, heart surgery or transplants or whatever. So I don't know if that's something that, we could look towards the future, specifically for maintenance, creating more of like a holographic opportunity to fix, just like you said.
We're talking about the AI glasses and how that can help.
But it gives you that physical on.
Yeah, I have even more on that.
Yeah.
As you're both talking, I'm thinking agentic AI. So building AI agents, they're cheap to build.
Yeah.
Fairly cheap to build. Each one of us could build one, right now in minutes. Not to say it's gonna be the best agent, but the concept is there, and it works to where you could actually build an agent that has all the information that a technician potentially needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not done in a way of asking them for their time. It's the other way around.
Right.
They're actually using this on their phone, and it's conversational.
Yeah.
They could literally pull up their phone, open the particular app that has the agent, and speak with the agent. So they ask the question, the agent answers, give them the answer. They even have options now that is bilingual, or for people that English is not their first language, or they don't, they feel more comfortable learning another language. They have that option too.
Yep.
So they could speak. Literally, you could look at a wiring schematic. Even ChatGPT does that. It doesn't have to be like an agent, just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You take a picture and you say, can you tell me, I'm trying to fix this issue, I don't know anything about it.
Right.
And more often than not, you get a very detailed scenario of what it could be wrong with it. So I see that as playing a role in our future, because in-person training is not an option because it's not scalable.
Correct.
At the national level, I was shocked to hear about a month ago from a friend of mine that's involved on a training side of the business, that we only have 10 national trainers in the entire industry. If we're thinking about 23 million apartments in the United States, that means about a workforce of 230,000 maintenance people. That means that you have a trainer at the national level for 23,000 people.
Yeah.
When in the world that person is going to be sitting? Never. The answer is never. It's never going to happen. So we got to come up with ways to, first of all, harvest their knowledge, right? Because we're losing also a lot of legacy knowledge. People going to other industries or retiring.
Yes.
And then we have nothing left because we haven't done a great job capturing that knowledge.
Knowledge
so first of all, So first of all, capturing it. And second of all, how do we build technology that actually help scaling knowledge, right? And make it very accessible to me. One of the answers, probably not the only one for sure, is going to be agents.
Yeah.
Agents.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
a
that.
big champion of using the tools that you have. So we talk about this all the time, and I say, it's not cheating to use ChatGPT to get the answers you need.
100%.
Use it to your advantage. Find the answers. Be resourceful, and find
Fact check them.
Yeah, well, fact check. But in maintenance, if you don't know how to fix something, look it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's at least in the immediate, that's a great way to approach the problem. If you don't necessarily have the solution just yet, but at least you can teach your people resourcefulness and find a solution on your own. If you're out in the middle of a property and you don't necessarily have someone that's going to come to your rescue to teach you how to fix that air condition, you could look it up and now you have better tools. So I think that's a great example of technology assisting us and not necessarily replacing us.
Totally agree, man. Like when you think about it, if you don't have a better tool to provide them, like it's not productive to say don't use ChatGPT.
Right.
Well, are you providing something better?
Yeah.
No. So then let me use ChatGPT or YouTube or
100%.
whatever resource might be out there. Is it perfect? No, by no means, right? Because it's not vetted. So that's another conversation that really ties back into the AI agents because they're not really they're learning from like everything that's available, but also they're training with a set of data. So
Right.
they're not just going all over the internet and use information that might not be vetted, might not be accurate.
Right.
Because that's where you're running into with ChatGPT. I want to wrap up our conversation with some things that make you excited about the future. So I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. Honestly, the AI piece does make me excited about the future. I think, anything that we can do to make our on-site teams' lives easier and happier, give them a better work-life balance, and I'm all for it. And I'm very excited about that. I think that, when you've got happy on-site team members, then you have happy owners and clients, and then the rest of us can have a fabulous work-life balance.
I agree, and I'll wrap it up by saying that competition is healthy,
Yeah.
and because of the competition that we've seen probably the last 20 to 25 years in the industry, the product has gotten a whole lot better. 30 years ago, when you were building an apartment, you gave the basics.
Mhm.
And you were lucky if you got washer dryer. That was like the
Right.
big thing
Oh, it's
30 years
incredible.
ago. Having a washer dryer in your
A
apartment
microwave.
Yeah.
or a microwave was, the top of the mountain. Nowadays, we've progressed to where that stuff is standard, and now we moved on to golf simulators on site and just additional amenities that weren't there before. So that's exciting for me because as a management company, we get to provide those amenities, and the resident gets to enjoy that lifestyle that we can provide.
I appreciate you both. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here today. It was an
Absolutely.
amazing conversation. For obviously, time considerance. We spent quite a bit of time. We could go on for like hours, really.
Yes,
And
love it.
so much more. But we got to do a long form, get you in a studio,
Yeah.
each one of you
We'll be
individually.
back.
Yep. Exactly.
And thank you. Thank you both.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Really appreciate it.